In this series we're going to step back in time. Using historical records, we're going to tell the stories of ordinary people and the events that shaped their lives. The three stories we're going to look at in this video are the Hull labourer's strange death, the three haunted houses, and the shocking murder at 65 Osborne Street. On Wednesday the 24th of November 1915, 64-year-old labourer John Walker Bond, who lived and worked in the city of Hull in the UK, started his day like any other. After finishing his breakfast, he waved goodbye to his wife and left his home for work as he had done many times before. But unbeknownst to John, this would be the last time he would make this journey, as tragic events later that day would come to claim his life. John worked for a local building company and he was working on the site at Majors Limited, a factory down Eyre Street. Eyre Street was a small, narrow road lined with factories, many of which used powerful industrial chemicals to manufacture paints or to treat leather. One of John's tasks was to mix concrete with a few of his co-workers, nearby to one of the factory buildings. But due to high winds that day, fumes from one of the nearby buildings was blown across the worksite, engulfing John and his workmates. Without warning, the men began coughing violently, struggling to catch a breath. This was because the fumes contained nitrous acid, a chemical compound used to prepare dyes along with other uses, and is known to cause severe lung damage. As quickly as the toxic cloud had appeared, it dispersed, and most of the men began to recover. But for John, things took a turn for the worse. His condition rapidly declined. Struggling to breathe, he was taken off site and given water, which only caused him to become more ill. He was rushed to the nearest hospital where oxygen was administered, but to no avail. That evening, John passed away from respiratory failure, his lungs too badly damaged, and doctors unable to do anything more than just ease his suffering. It was a time when health and safety as we know it today was virtually non-existent, and the simple act of going to work, for John, was a fatal one. Between 1852 and 1899, the local newspaper reported three notable haunted houses in the Alnby Road area of Hull. All three were just a stone's throw apart. Each house was reportedly home to a single ghost, making its presence known in different ways. But it's not the uninvited spectral guests that make this story strange, it's the reaction of local residents that's more strange. The first incident happened in 1852 and occurred at 99 Wellington Lane, when its occupier, a Mr. William B, reported knocking and scratching on the walls of his house by some invisible hand. At first he didn't take too much notice, presuming it was coming from the neighbour's house. But as the days went by, the noises became more frequent and would happen just a few feet away from where Mr. B would be sat. Two police officers arrived at the property at the request of the residents. As soon as they arrived, the noises started, even making the police feel uneasy. The officers were stationed at the property for some time to try and identify the source of the noise, but no explanation could be found. By now, word had spread of the strange ghostly presence, attracting large crowds of locals who gathered outside the property at night. Among them were respectable members of society such as doctors and teachers, and some staying to the early hours of the morning. One evening, a group of 200 to 300 people tried to force their way into the property, and a dozen police officers had to be sent to break up the crowd. A constant police presence had to be kept outside to guard the property for almost a month until the noises finally stopped. The cause of the noises was put down to the passing of trains or the materials used in the construction of the house by local officials. A similar incident happened not long afterwards at a property down Convent Lane, but this time a witness claimed to have seen a ghostly figure moving around the property. Again, a large crowd gathered outside. Some people tried to communicate with the ghost, but received no response. After a while, the crowd worked itself into a frenzy and decided they were going to try and catch the ghost.
I bring you love.
It's bringing love. Don't let it get away.
Break its legs!
The now angry mob smashed the windows and wrecked the house in their pursuit. The damage was so severe that the property had to be pulled down afterwards. This incident should perhaps be taken with a pinch of salt, as the only source was a local woman recounting the events 40 years later to the local newspaper. The next ghostly appearance occurred in 1899 at an empty property on Park Street, recently acquired by the North Eastern Railway. Someone reported seeing a white figure moving around in the attic, and soon people gathered nearby hoping to see the spirit for themselves. The police were deployed night and day to protect the property. However, a quarter of the crowd began throwing rocks and stones at the building. The The police tried to intervene, but before long a small riot had broken out, with parts of the crowd attacking nearby properties. The scariest thing for the residents living near these supposedly haunted houses was not the ghostly apparitions, but the mob mentality that took over people who came looking to get a glimpse of the ghosts. On Thursday morning, on the 15th of May 1873, Jane Crompton was having breakfast with her husband John and her two young daughters, 3-year-old Bertha and 4-month-old Sarah. They lived at 65 Osborne Street in Hull. After breakfast, John helped Jane with some household tasks, kissed her goodbye and left for work at 8 AM. He noted that Jane seemed to be in good spirits and headed out. However, just half an hour later, Jane calmly went into her neighbour's apartment, bringing her eldest daughter with her. Sitting down, she said in a calm manner to her neighbour Alice Fox, "Mrs. Fox, will you go into my room? I've done something to Sarah." Alice, stunned, replied, "Surely not." Jane, still without showing any emotion, said simply, "Yes, I have cut her head off." Horrified, Alice Fox rushed into Jane's apartment, and to her disbelief, she found the 4-month-old Sarah's decapitated body on the floor. A large kitchen knife lay nearby, covered in blood. Panicking, Alice ran back into her apartment, dragging Jane out of the house to protect her own children. She called for another tenant to guard Jane while she fetched for the police. PC John Dixie responded to the commotion. Upon entering the house, he found Jane and immediately took her into custody. Jane freely admitted to the crime. Investigations learned after her husband had left for work, Jane used the keys to unlock a box containing a set of brand new kitchen knives. As Jane was escorted to the police station, an angry crowd of local residents gathered outside. They shouted at her, and one woman even attempted to attack her with a knife before the constable intervened and restored order. So what could have driven a mother to commit such a horrific act? 2 months before the murder, neighbours noticed a shift in Jane's behaviour. She began complaining about bottle feeding her baby and seemed visibly uncomfortable when in the same room as her infant daughter. Disturbingly, she was heard saying things like she wished the baby was in heaven and frequently threatened to do something about it. Strangely, she continued to show affection towards her older child, Bertha. While awaiting trial, Jane was held at York Castle Prison under the care of Deputy Surgeon Tempest Anderson. At her trial, Dr. Anderson testified that Jane suffered from significant psychological problems and was, in his professional opinion, insane. He also revealed Jane had been treated at a lunatic asylum earlier in her life and had other family members who were institutionalised. Based on this evidence, the jury returned a verdict of not guilty by reason of insanity. The judge ordered that Jane be detained at Her Majesty's pleasure, meaning she would remain in custody indefinitely. Jane Crompton was sent to Broadmoor Criminal Lunatic Asylum, where she remained until her death in 1916.